Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, and follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct, and I'm so excited to have Kim Rittberg with us today. Kim, hello.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So great to have you here. And I want to give a little bit of Kim's bio so you know who you're talking to today. Kim Rittberg is an award-winning digital marketer and thought leader who helps professionals become thought leaders and businesses become brands through video and podcasts. She is the founder of Video Bootcamp and spent 15 years as a media executive at Netflix, People Magazine, and TV News, and launched the first ever video unit for US Weekly Magazine and was integral in their $100 million sale. She now applies that to business owners to grow their income, leads, and credibility. And Kim's been featured in Business Insider. She contributes to Fast Company, and she is a speaker across the country, including at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices convention. That's Warren Buffett's, if you don't know. Fast Company, Innovation Festival, and guest lectures at Syracuse University. She hosts the Top 1% podcast, The Exit Interview with Kim Rittberg, and is a judge for the Webbys and Anthem Awards. And her podcast, which I had the pleasure of being on, was spurred by her decision to quit corporate and launch her own business after working in the hospital while giving birth to her second child. The podcast helps self-employed people bet on themselves and win with founder stories and tangible concrete advice, as well as solo mini-masterclass marketing episodes. And a fun fact about Kim, she spent a year backpacking solo and used to perform improv comedy. Oh, I love that. I did that too. Not backpacking, improv. Not at the same time, obviously. And she also speaks Spanish. So welcome, Kim. It's so great to know even more about you and have everybody learn kind of the person behind all the methods. And we met through our good friend, Bobby Rebell. And Bobby introduced us. She had one of these networking salons when she was living in New York City. She's since moved to Florida. We miss you, Bobby. And Kim and I connected again at PodFest 2024, where we were both speaking. So it's so great, A, to have connected with you again, B, to be sharing your knowledge, your expertise with my audience, which is just one of the fun things of being on each other's podcasts and sharing our mutual knowledge. So welcome again.
Yeah, it was so great to see you. I was like, oh my God, Estella's at PodFest. So I'm so glad to be connected. And I know you impart so much knowledge, which you did on my podcast, and I'm excited to share with your listeners all that I know, or at least some of what I know.
Okay, let's jump right into it, Kim, because there are so many writers and authors who are launching their books, launching some new project that they want to get noticed for. And first of all, what are they doing wrong? And second, what can they do right?
Sure. So from my experience being a journalist for TV for a long time, and in that role, I would be pitched people, like thousands of people, to be on TV. I would get their pitches on email. Sometimes they would pitch me in real life. And the thing that you have to remember when you're actually creating that content to put out into the world is that you're not selling your book, and you're not selling the article you just wrote. You have to think of it as content that is valuable to people. And by bringing them in and seeing you as this educator, this engaging person who brings forth a smart voice, introspective voice, whatever it is that you bring, bringing that value to them will end up helping you sell the book, getting more eyes on your writing, getting more writing roles. Like, you have to think of it not as sales first. So number one, don't just start showing up on social media and just focus on selling the book. Focus on taking wisdom nuggets from your book and putting them out there as individual pieces of content. Now, the second part I think people are doing wrong is a lot of people are in their own head about being on social media, whether it's just posting or showing up with their face and their voice, and they feel self-conscious, or maybe it feels narcissistic, or maybe it feels salesy, and they have a discomfort with it.
Right.
I am here to say, hiding from the camera means hiding from clients. And in this case, hiding from book buyers. You're not doing your book or yourself or your career any favors by hiding. So it's really important to break through that. And even if you don't love being on camera, I understand that. Plenty of people feel that way, especially writers. But figuring out a way that feels natural and authentic to you to start showing up consistently on social media.
So when you say social media, this is not just like the post that somebody will make, a pretty post with a quote from themselves, which I've been seeing a lot lately. I liked it when my publisher did it. They did a beauty board for me. And when I'm on podcasts, sometimes they do that. And I think it's a nice thing to do for somebody. But you're saying like your face, your presence. Like I have a YouTube connection to my podcasts, I guess. So I put it on YouTube and then share clips. Is it even more to that? Should somebody be just speaking a nugget? I love you use the word wisdom nuggets from their book and then explain it a little bit more. Would that be something you would recommend?
Yes. And one thing that I think about, writers and authors, they're so smart. They put so much thought and so many months and years of work into writing it, into the thought behind it, how you're framing it. So it's just a little bit of a shift of how do you take your written word and create short, digestible bits of information. That could be a couple of examples. That could be, let's say your chapter header is a great pithy quote. That could be a post in itself. That could be a quote in itself, and then you talk about it a little bit, but really taking those things and creating digestible, standalone pieces of information. And don't worry so much about, will this post sell a book, or will this post get someone to read my article? You're really building on, I actually hate the word personal brand, but you're building up your personal message, right? You're a person who believes in X. And here's another format for you to put that out there. Here's another way for people to agree with you, buy into you, be a fan of yours, be a connector of yours, be a referrer of yours, be a cheerleader, host a book club, anything like that. But you have to put it out there in the way that people are consuming. And if you're out there and all you're doing is saying, buy my book in chapter 8 of my book X, people tune out sales. There's so much sales out there. Once they feel like you're selling them, they're not invested in you. They're not invested in your message. They feel like you're selling them. You kind of broke that trust relationship already. So whatever the format is, whether it's a short video, whether it's a quote, and then you expand on it. And if you're really camera shy, there's other ways you can reach out to me. I have a whole thing about how to make videos. If you don't want to show your face, there's a way to do that. But don't even worry about the execution. Just be like, start being committed to the idea of creating chunks of nuggets of wisdom that can be standalone pieces of content, and start creating that.
And so that's good when you have a nonfiction, how-to element to your book. Mine is combined with some stories from my life, plus the how-to aspect. So for how-to, I could totally see that. What if someone has a memoir? Do they delve deeper into the reasons that they wrote a certain chapter, or something about the background that was happening that could be relatable to the audience? Like, how would you do those wisdom nuggets that way?
So for a memoir, you really have stories that are standalone stories, that are teachable moments. That are, you read a great memoir, it has a lot of things that jump out at you as a reader. So think about it from a reader perspective or from a writer perspective. What are those moments that were really like flag in the sand? This is a great story. Isolate that story And that's a story for social media. That's a content moment. If you start looking on social media with this new eye, like one of the things my students in Video Bootcamp tell me, they're like, I look at content totally differently. So I welcome you to start being on social media and to start looking at content differently and seeing like, what is this made up? What are they putting out there? But B, how are they executing it? And become a student of content and then think about how your writing can fit into content. And so that's one thing that I think is really important is just like you learn how to write and learn how to improve upon your craft, I teach my students in Video Bootcamp and my one-on-one clients how to be a student of content to then be a master of content.
I love that. Now, what about TikTok? Talk to me about TikTok. I just achieved the 1,000, that miraculous number, and I just put a thing out saying that I'm going to do a live. And I have received no comments. I mean, I have students messaging me, but they're like not even on TikTok, but they saw it because I posted on Instagram. But nobody's comment except some guys who are like, hey, I'm like, yeah, no.
I mean, I think, my attitude towards all the platforms is go where you feel comfortable, go where your clients, book buyers, people who are going to hire you to write, like just be where you can benefit. So I'm sort of agnostic to platform.
Okay.
If people that you want to reach are on TikTok, be on TikTok. If people you want to reach are on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn. If they're on X, a lot of times for journalists, it's on X. So if you're trying to get, cultural commentary or news write-up, that's an X type of place. It really just be where people are. That's what I think. It's not necessarily about, oh, this is the trend, because social media platforms will come and go. It's about really doing a little bit of research and saying, where are people that I want to reach? And then what can I be consistent with?
Instagram is constantly changing. I mean, are Reels even a thing? That's another place where social media is really taking over, but I think it's changing. Hashtags are not so big now,
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to keep changing. 5 years ago, TikTok was not really a thing. It wasn't. So I think it's less a matter of people are like, how do I optimize for blah? I'm like, the one thing that is constant is your personal message. So I think you just have to say, what is the message I want to get out there that I can bring value and a unique point of view? Where that exists will shift. People were on MySpace years ago. People were all over Facebook years ago. And so I think actually Facebook is still big for certain demographics, but I think it's less about where are you rather than saying, this is who I am. This is how I put my message out into the world. This is the value I feel I can put forth, or this is how I like to teach. However, whatever makes you feel comfortable with putting yourself out there more, think of it from that viewpoint and then just figure out the right platform and be consistent with it.
And you talk also about the 4 C's. Can you talk about that and explain a little bit more what that is?
Yeah, this is great. This is something I spoke about at the Fast Company Innovation Festival in the fall, is when you're coming up with video or social content ideas, there are the 4 C's to really make content that's going to connect with people. And again, we're talking about people who could buy your book, people who can hire you to write, people who could just be a fan of yours and spread the word, maybe host a book club, all of the people that are like your target audience, right? So the 4 C's are confidence, clarity, consistency, and creativity. So we're going to talk about those. So confidence is when you're showing up, I'm going to push you to show up, but when you show up on camera, you have to really believe in your message. And one of the things to break people out of their, oh, I don't want to be on camera, blah, 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 my hair, my makeup, my clothing, my mole on my face, whatever. People come to me with the craziest stuff. Like I have, people come to me and they always like, do you notice this thing on my cheek? No, I would never have seen it if you had not pointed it out. But so everyone is self-conscious about being on camera. So you're in good company if you feel uncomfortable, but it's important to get out of that mindset, get out of supermodel mode and get into teacher mode. You have to believe that it's not as important what you're wearing or what your makeup looks like or how your voice sounds. And you have to just focus on what information you're going to put out into the world. Whether you're teaching or you're sharing your stories, you're sharing your lessons from your memoir, you have to just say, this is the message I want to put out there. And I really believe in it. And I believe in it more than I feel the self-consciousness of being on camera. And it takes a while.
Do you feel that any kind of like angle is good? Because I see people, their faces like this, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I always teach my students. I tell my students this. I'm always like, the most important thing is the message and what you're putting out there. But I always teach them the basics of good production, because I think when your content needs to meet a certain threshold, it does not need to be like ready for a Super Bowl commercial, but it does need to meet a certain threshold. They need to be able to hear you. You should be not so close to the camera that there's no room for graphics. Think about it that way. So if it's like the rule of thirds, if you're shooting vertical video, kind of your face is like in the middle, you would have room for like captions or subtitles above or below you. That's just a way to think about it. And you always want to be evenly lit. So you don't want to be like, you know, when people are on a Zoom and someone looks like they're in a cave, like
I'm
have some
laughing.
lighting on you.
I'm laughing because the first thing that I did, saying I'm going to do the live on TikTok, the captions was over my face, but I was like, you know, I'm just going to go with it. But
yes. And I think you learn, like, as you keep going, you learn, and just like, don't beat yourself up over it. When you start, like the first video you'll hate, the third video you'll hate a little less, the sixth video you'll be like, okay, that wasn't that bad. And by 10, you're like, I don't care. So I think it's really repetition. Like you really just need to get in the repetitions of doing it. But the number one is confidence. So if you're going to get out there, be confident. The second one is clarity. So our books or our articles are thousands and thousands and thousands of words. A video cannot be that. A video can be 30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. Just realize you are only isolating like one thought. So that clarity is clarity of message. In one video, you'll have one thought.
I like that. One video, one thought. Anyone can do that. I mean, that's really doable. That's really actionable.
And then you'll also have more content. Like people are like, how am I going to make all this content? Well, think about all of the things you teach or say or talk about. If you have one video for one thought, you already have your content calendar filling up.
Right, right. And so would you recommend using any of these AI tools that are out there?
So I just spoke with this really well-known SEO expert called Neil Patel for my podcast. And he was saying that human generated content performs better than AI 91% of the time. So AI is not necessarily your friend for actually writing, which I'm sure you know, but I do think AI can help you be more efficient. So I think about AI can help you take a large video. There's a bunch of different apps. Take a long video that you shot and cut it into moments. That's totally fine. So if you made a video that's 4 minutes and you're telling the AI tool, cut this into short form moments, and it can identify it for you, that's fine. It depends on like how much ownership you want to have. I have no problem with using AI. I just think you have to be smart about how you're going to use it. So maybe AI will turn your podcast into show notes or a show description. Okay, that's not a bad use of it. Still, you should put your own voice and your tone and like polish it up. But definitely when we're talking about efficiency, I have no problem like using AI to be more efficient. We all have.
I agree. It's great for organization or to even idea generation.
Totally. Even idea generation. I think like it can give you 20 ideas. Maybe you like 7 of them, but then you should still make them your own. And also like, this is the other thing I think about this is you are your own special sauce. I have a class where I teach, you know, a group of professionals at the same time how to come up with good ideas and how to make content to grow their business or to grow their writing business or to sell more books. If I gave everyone the same prompt, I would have 10 different videos because you have your own perspective, your own life experiences, your own personality. And so don't worry about that so much, but really push forward your identity, your perspective, your point of view on the world. And that's what's going to make your content distinguishable.
What about competition in the genre, right? Because like there are a lot of memoirists, there are a lot of writers, there are a lot of even writing teachers. How do you make yourself as a writer, which is my audience, stand out?
Sure. I think the main 2 things is expertise and personality. So your expertise being like, what are you really amazing at and leaning into that? So whether you're teaching, you're educational, or you're a memoirist, or you're a cultural commentator, whatever your angle is, really lean into that and don't try to be anything else. And then always bring your voice, always bring your personal voice. Just like when you write, you try to bring your voice. Always bring your voice. Even I especially think even when you're doing like educational, let's say you're doing a nonfiction book on nonfiction writing, even a video that's a how-to video, someone can Google that. So you have to be like, what's the Kim Rittberg of it? Like you can Google, how should I film my video? But like you probably enjoy watching my Instagram video about that because I'm having fun with it. I'm teaching you. You can tell that I enjoy it. I'm an extrovert. Like that's why you like me and you want to work with me because honestly, a lot of this information you kind of can put together yourself on Google, like if you're teaching. So you have to think about what makes you different and what makes you special and really bringing that forth. The other 4 C's was confidence, clarity, consistency, and creativity. So consistency is just whatever you're doing, do it consistently. If you don't have enough time to do more than 1 post a week or 2 posts a week, that's fine. That's totally fine, but don't overload on 1 month and then disappear. That's not going to be good. That's not going to build your following. It's not going to sell more books. And creativity is like, if you're serving your audience and you have a good headline, that's creative. Don't overthink it. I think sometimes people are like, is this special? Is this good enough? It's like, if this is a thought that came from your book that you believe in, that you spent years on making, it's good. So don't overthink that. If it serves your audience and it has a good headline, it's creative.
I love that. I want you to mention patching, which you had said
Yeah.
is a technique.
The patch method is something I came up with for people to get out of their head and show up on camera confidently. This is for on camera. This is for public speaking. This is for schmoozing in a room, networking. So this is my patch method to be more confident on camera or public speaking. So PATCH, the first is P is preparation. When you're showing up on camera, you have to prepare both your message, but also your mindset. We forget the mindset piece, but the truth is 75% of people that I work with, they're not 100% a yes on showing up. You have to believe that there is a reason for you to be on camera and that you are going to bring all of your confidence to that video or to that public speaking moment. Because as soon as you're not confident, you just kind of lose it. So you have to really prepare your mind. I should be on camera. This is important for my business. This is important for my books. Maybe I feel discomfort in here, but I'm moving past that. I'm moving through the discomfort, and that's normal. Like, what do they say? If you're uncomfortable, it means you're growing.
That's great.
And then your message. So of course, before you go on camera, even if it's one bullet point, just know what you're about to say. There's nothing worse than like going on camera and you're like, oh, what was I going to say? Or going on a live and you're like, I'm not going to prepare. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head. No. Unless you're a stand-up comedian or like a professional improviser, don't do that. And I'm going to give you the letters, just preparation, authenticity, turn off distractions, confidence, and harness. So harness your energy. If you're high energy, slow it down. If you're low energy, amp yourself up. So be the mid-level, not too crazy high energy, not too crazy low energy.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Kim, for being my guest. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I look forward to seeing more of what your students and the people that are coaching are doing.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And if people want to grab my free tips, I have 10 tips to make video that gets you noticed and how to be confident on camera. That's at kimrittberg.com/newsletter. And you can follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Kim Rittberg. And my podcast is The Exit Interview with Kim Rittberg. And it's people paving their own path while also achieving balance in their life.
Love it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.